What's the difference between planning for the future and using the future as an excuse to not live now? I don't think most of us know when we crossed that line. I know I didn't. But the other day I uploaded a video about something that's become one of, you know, my favorite parts of the week. Every Tuesday and Thursday morning, I meet three older gentlemen at McDonald's for, coffee and a breakfast sandwich. Nothing fancy, just good conversation, a lot of laughs, and a reminder that some of the best moments in life don't cost much at all. And today, I was reading through the comments when one sentence stopped me cold. A man wrote, I watched my dad do that for 20 years, and I really look forward to this. Only a couple of years left before retirement. At first, I smiled, but then I read it again. And the second time, I didn't hear retirement anymore. I heard an excuse. Now, before anybody gets mad at me, hear me out. I am not judging that man. Matter of fact, I've made that exact same excuse myself. Just with different words. When things settle down, when I have more money, when I have more time, when life isn't so busy. Different words, same excuse. Then something else hit me. He said he was waiting for retirement. What I heard was permission. Permission to finally start enjoying his life. And that scared me. Because how many of us are doing that exact same thing? Not waiting for retirement, but waiting for permission. Permission that nobody was ever supposed to give us. Maybe the biggest lie that we tell ourselves isn't that we don't have enough time, but maybe it's believing that life can wait. And so the more I thought about his comment, the more I realized this has almost nothing to do with retirement. It's about postponing life. Somewhere along the way, most of us start believing we have to earn the right to enjoy ourselves. After the mortgage, after the kids are grown, after work slows down, after retirement, always after, never now. And the scary part is those don't even sound like excuses. They sound responsible. And that's exactly why they're so dangerous. Nobody wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to waste the next 10 years. It happens quietly. 1 week becomes another, 1 month becomes another, 1 year becomes five becomes 10, and it just keeps snowballing from there. And one day you look around wondering just where the hell your life went. Well, that's where it went. I mean, it is what it is. That's where mine went. Those mornings at McDonald's have taught me something, those men probably don't even realize they're teaching me. We don't spend our mornings talking about who worked the hardest, and nobody brags about how much overtime they put in or how much money they had or any of that. Instead, they tell stories about fishing trips, old friends, their wives, their kids, their grandkids, and things that make them laugh. Things that they wish they'd done differently. They're remembering life, not work. That made me ask myself something. If that's what we remember, why do so many of us keep postponing it? Why do we act like life doesn't begin until some date on a calendar? That's ridiculous, but we do it. Who made that rule? Because I don't remember signing any contract. You know, I never waited for retirement. I waited on circumstances. When things got easier, when I catch up, when I have a little extra money, when life settles down, when the kids are grown. That sound familiar? Well, here's the problem. Life never completely settles down. There's always another bill, another responsibility, another reason to wait. And every one of them sounds perfectly reasonable until you realize, you've been saying the same thing for 15 years. That's when tomorrow quietly becomes a decade or decades. Not because you were lazy and not because you didn't care, but because you honestly believed life would start later. Now, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not telling anybody to quit their job. I'm not telling anybody to ignore their responsibilities. We've all got responsibilities. I've got bills to pay just like you do. But what I'm asking is, why does every good thing have to wait? Why can't you meet somebody for breakfast once a week? Or why can't you take your wife to watch the sunrise? Why can't you drive to the river with a cup of coffee? Why can't you spend an hour doing something that reminds you that you're alive? You're alive now. You're not going to be. I promise you, you're not going to be forever. Your days are numbered. You better get after them. Most of the peace I've found over the last several months hasn't cost much money at all. It just required one decision: to stop waiting for permission. You know, but that one comment probably wasn't meant to change anybody's life, but it changed the way I looked at mine because it forced me to ask myself a question. Am I preparing for the future or am I hiding behind it? There's a huge difference. Of course, plan for retirement, save your money, be responsible. Absolutely. But don't accidentally postpone your life while you're busy preparing for it. I mean, talk about putting the cart before the horse. Because, you know, none of us even know if retirement is guaranteed. You're not promised tomorrow, but today is. Tomorrow isn't. And tomorrow has a funny way of becoming next year. Next year becomes 5 years, 5 years becomes 10, and before you know it, tomorrow turned into a decade. You know, but if this video made you stop and think, I'd appreciate you hitting the like button. And not because it helps me feel good, but because it helps YouTube put this message in front of someone else who might be waiting for someday. And before you go, I want you to answer one question in the comments. What have you been putting off because you're waiting for the right time? Because maybe today's the day you stop waiting. Y'all, I was passionate in this one. I had a hard time keeping it together. But sometimes this stuff hits me hard. But anyways, I'll see y'all in the next one.